Hey guys, Luke again here from Hands and Heels Racing. So early video this week, really got stuck into the Derby Day card for Flemington today. So we'll get the video out there nice and early, give you guys a chance to listen, make your own mind up, look at the odds, watch the fluctuations, and sort of not leave it to last minute and only have some of you listen to the video. So we'll get straight into it. So Derby Day, arguably the best racing card of the year. What I'm going to do with the video, I'm just going to go through the Flemington, the 9 races at Flemington, go through the races, and there's obviously a meet at Rose Hill as well in Sydney, but I'm not going to preview those races. Obviously the racing up there now is of a lesser standard than down in Melbourne. All the action's down here for Cup Week, and I'll be previewing those races in Melbourne. I will post any sort of horses that I'm going to be backing in Sydney in a separate post on Facebook. So just for the YouTube channel, it's just going to be the Derby Day preview. So we'll get stuck into it. We'll get into race 1. It's a pretty big card, a lot of horses, a lot of good horses to go through. So race 1, the Carbine Club, always a good race. 1600 metres for the 3-year-olds. Last year the winner was Coming Through, trained by Chris Waller. Remember I backed Haydock, and you see the things that Haydock's gone on to achieve and what the other horses in the race have done. And you know, still a little bit bitter that he couldn't get the job done at $5 in hindsight. He's turned out to be, you know, the superior horse out of the group. But it is a strong race. Big news today, Chaotic, the Chris Waller trained horse, lightly raced, has been scratched, $2.70 favourite. I don't think he's officially come out yet, but all the news reports on Twitter have said that Chaotic's come out with an elevated temperature and will be spelled. So that's going to obviously take out quite a large percentage of the market. So everything's going to trim right up. So probably want to wait till tomorrow till the official scratching comes through and all the prices get adjusted. But even then, even with Chaotic in, I did the form with Chaotic in today, and I was quite keen on Snitzerpeg. And you know, why is he $10? I sort of had him marked as between $5 and $6. He's won his last 2 starts. He won pretty comfortably last start. He had his ears pinned. He sort of went away from them on the line. He's out of Schnitzel, so you could say 1600's a query, but the way he races suggests that it won't be a query. Barrier 6, he'll just map. Once again, he'll get that beautiful run, either outside the lead or one out, one back. And $3.30 to run a drum, I thought was a great value. So the way I sort of had the race, I had Chaotic marked as favourite. I felt 270 was a little bit too short coming down from Sydney. There's no real link on his form lines, and that suggests that he is the superior animal compared to some of these other runners. But I did have him marked favourite, but he obviously comes out. I had Snitzerpeg marked as probably equal second favourite with Lavendi. Lavendi is $5, which is around about the price I had him marked as. So obviously I had Snitzerpeg as the value at $10, who was double Lavendi's price. So Lavendi has claims, comes out of the Guineas lead up. He was arguably just as good a run as Royal Symphony in the Guineas prelude, and we just saw Royal Symphony run 4th to Winks on the weekend in the Cox Plate. So that's pretty strong form for a drop in grade back to the Carbine Club. 1600 on a big track seems to suit for Lavendi. So I had sort of him marked, but I just took Snitzerpeg at the value. So I looked at the race. Bo Jess was disappointing last start. I can't have Sambro. I don't think his form lines are strong enough. There's a few lightly raced runners. Out of them, I probably prefer Relson, who I think was quite good last start at Flemington. He's had a month off, and I think he covered a bit of ground that day. So I think at $21 he can run a decent race. I haven't yet backed him. I'll wait and see if I want to sort of back something else to go along for my Snitzerpeg bet. But quite happy with the value there. I really think he's probably one of the better value bets on the card, Snitzerpeg. So that's race 1. We'll go down to race 2, the Wakeful Stakes. And Pinois was nominated, and it was opened all in as favourite, but it isn't running, which makes Bring Me the Roses the favourite. Or Bring Me Roses, sorry, not Bring Me the Roses. And look, to be honest, a couple of guys I speak with as well, we're quite surprised she's still $3.80, $4. So she was $3.20 all in with Pinois in the field. Now that Pinois has been scratched, you think she'd be starting $3 or sub $3, but you know, they've kept her out at $3.80. The query with Bring Me Roses is 4 weeks off, 2000 first time, but being out of High Chaparral, her running pattern indicates that 2000 will be not so much even a pass mark, will be a positive for her. So she savaged the line last start at Flemington, so I think Flemington 2000 is a big tick, and you know, everything out of that race I think she's got covered. She beat them by 2.5 lengths. So the other form lines, you're looking for different form here. So Lover's coming down from Sydney. I feel, you know, it's slightly under to $6. I think the punters have come for her with that different form line, but up to 2,000 metres, and I'm not too sure how strong those form lines are either. I think she got the form around Sambro, but behind Chaotic, I believe, last start. So once again, like I said with Chaotic, we've got no measure as to how strong that form is, and she is coming down from Sydney, and she's got to go the Melbourne way, and you know, there's a lot of she's got to fit in somewhere. We don't quite know where that is yet, and I thought $6 a little bit too skinny. Not she can win, not knocking her. I just think there's a few queries there. Rim Ram was second behind Pinoir last start, and you know, I think she can run sort of top 4 again. She's solid claims. High Am sort of one batted. I was on High Am last start. She was third in that race behind Pinoir, and sort of had the perfect run. One batted, stuck on well, but really didn't show a turn of foot. I think Rim Ram beat her comfortably, and I'd assume would do so again. I think Teodora's the one that can improve out of that race. Only her third start, and it was a big step up in grade, and she come down that middle part of the Caulfield track, which was definitely the worst going that day. Everything seemed to be on pace rails that day for the most part, so she was in the worst part of the track. And I think out to Flemington, I think 4th start, I think she can improve, especially being out of Darren Weir. You've got to put your faith in Darren Weir. He sort of has a knack of getting his horses right on their grand final day. So the way I had the race, I had Bring Me the Roses on top. Quite keen. I think $4 is a very good price. Rim Ram Teodori will to fill the placings at the moment. I think Lava Lava is obviously in the mix as well, but I just sort of had Rim Ram and Teodora at slightly better odds. And having the runs in Melbourne on the board, I had them slightly ahead of Lava Lava. So that's why I was looking at the race. Probably High Am next best, but apart from that, that's about it for the race. We'll go to race 3. And we've got the skip sprint, so 1,100 metres up the straight for all the mares. Tough race, once again, it's a tough card. So, look, I'm going through my selections here, and you know, I could say 4 horses that I still might miss the winner. It's that kind of day, it's that kind of week where you've got 20 horse fields, 16 horse fields, you know, Group 1s. All these horses have been set to peak on this day or on Tuesday, or you know, for this week. It's very tough, so there's a lot of angles you can take. My angle is I'm very scared to back favourites. I am backing Bring Me Roses. I think she might be the only favourite I might be backing on the day. Because in these open races, why do you want to back the shortest price one? They've all got claims. You know, of course something has to be favourite, and of course the favourite is probably potentially is more likely to win than something at 30 to 1. But I just think there's a lot of forgotten horses. There's a lot of different angles and forgive runs from last start. So I'm being very careful about backing favourites in these big open fields. And the other angle I'm taking is we're going from Caulfield and Moonee Valley to Flemington. I mentioned that in the Moonee Valley review show from last weekend, Cox Plate weekend, that you've got to be careful treading forward with that form. It's a completely different race shape at Flemington. It's a big track, long straight, and different horses. You're looking to back different profile horses at times. So that's another thing to note. And with the track pattern, look, it's hard for me to say. I'm assuming a fair track. I've done my form assuming for a fair track, and a fair track at Flemington gives back markers a good chance of running on. But wide barriers aren't necessarily a bad thing if your horse goes back or likes to have cover midfield. So it's not easy to lead at Flemington unless, of course, the rails is hot. But so I'm just giving you some things that might be overs and my views. But once again, it's up to you whether you want to bet early. A decent strategy is to wait and see how the track's playing, especially for those later races. You're not going to know race 1 how the track's going to play, but when you get to race 6 and 7, 8, you kind of have an idea of the trend, whether it's a fair track, they've been winning from all over the place, or whether you think there's a bit of a bias there as well. So we'll continue on with race 3, but that's just a few things to note for the day. Shidell's definitely the class runner. She's proven Flemington straight. I've kind of been against Shidell this preparation. I backed her first up, was disappointed, have been against her since. She's ran okay, hasn't been disgraced in some strong races, but she hasn't won, so I think I've pulled the right rein there. I think here though, I have some kind of interest because I think every single horse in this race has a knock, and I think her form lines are pretty good for this, but I'm going to stick with my stance of staying against her, especially at the $4.60, like I said, open races, multiple angles to take. Taking the $4.60 about a horse that I think isn't at her best anymore probably isn't the right rein to pull again. Savannah Ramore is something I've backed already because I think she's overs. She opened up $15 with Sportsbet, and look, her last start reads poor, but it was at 1400 metres, and I think if you go back through the two starts previous, she won at 1200, and I think she is a sprinter. I think her best distances are the sprint trips, 1200 metres. Flemington straight first time, so that's obviously a query. Top weight as well, I'm not sure she has the class of Shidell, carries the same weight. But I think I'm happy to forgive her last start, and prior to that she was running really well. And I think she has won over 1400, so in her favour, you want a strong horse up the straight. So, you know, the pressure can go on, and if you've got an 1100 metre horse running an 1100 metre straight race, they can be often susceptible that last 100 metres. So I'm happy to have Savannah Amore, who I think will be there to tough it out at the end of the race. And, you know, I thought she was over. So there's a couple of queries there, but unlike Shidell, I'm getting a price for Savannah Amore. So I'm happy to have a bid on it at the $15 mark. So we'll go through Nieta. I'm heavily against Nieta. First time straight, I think she was very poor last start. You know, her form red, racing horses like Red Zell coming down last start, I thought she was weighted to win. Flemington first time, I just think $4.80 is too skinny for her. I'm opposing Nieta. She can win without me. Lyuba's another one that potentially I wouldn't talk you out of backing. She was a big improver last start. From reports from the parade was that she could parade even better again. She was a little bit fired up, so she did quite well to run as well as she did. She has won up straight before, albeit in a weaker race earlier in her career. But Damian Lane as well, I think she ticks a few boxes, and she's $10. So I think that's a pretty fair price, and I wouldn't talk you out of backing Lyuba. I think she's got a reasonable chance. Late Como's the other one I back, so I've got my money invested in Savannah Amore and Late Como. So I think Late Como has a class query. I don't think she's as good. Her best is as good as Shidell's best, or Savannah Amore's best, or Nieta's best. But she's 3 from 3 first up, and she loves the Flemington straight. So I think she's got a pretty good recipe here to tackle her favourite sort of track and distance, and she's doing it first up here. So I'm assuming this is a target race for them. And I think whilst there's a few knocks on the other ones, I think her only knock is class. And at the $9 mark, I'm pretty happy to have a small play there as well. So a little bit of value in the race with Late Como and Savannah Amore. Can't have any down the bottom. Like I said, Lyuba would be my next pick. And then probably Shidell, who's probably going to be in the mix, but I'm going to oppose at the price. So we go to the Lexus Stakes. So the winner of this will go into the Melbourne Cup on Tuesday, so only a 3-day backup. But traditionally the Lexus has been a sort of backdoor way into the Melbourne Cup, and a lot of the winners of the Lexus have actually run quite well. I think My Lucky Day coming second to American a few years back now. Sign Off, I think, won the race, maybe would have been 2 years ago now, and ran 4th in the Melbourne Cup last year. We had Oceanographer come out and win the Lexus. Did fail in the Melbourne Cup, but started $7, $8. So with this year's race, it's very open again. Heavily against Ecuador. I think the price, I think he's drifted since his opening quote out to about $10 now. I mean, the prep has been all over the shop. How can you back it? It's gone like, you know, 14, 14, 16, those kind of distances. Then up to 2,000 in the JRA Cup at Moonee Valley. Back to 1,600, now up to 2,500. It's just, look, Waterhouse and Adrian Bott are running hot at the moment, but I just think it's pretty poor placement. If it comes out and wins, so be it. The horse has got a bit of class about it, but just the preparation is not ideal. Look, Harlem, I don't know what to make of this horse. There's a bit of a myth about it. He had that naturalism run, which was very good, but I think he had everything there to suit. He just sucked up on the inside. I think he's disappointed his last 2 stints. He was a bit unlucky in the Caulfield Cup, but I didn't feel like he was going to run top 4 anyway, and he had such a light weight. He was probably the weight horse in the Caulfield Cup. Now he rises 5.5 kilos. So I'm not sure what to make of him. I just think at $4.60, I think he's a bit too skinny. I can't have him. The way he's been hitting the line, or you know, the SPs and the performances he's been putting in, I think he's been a bit disappointing. He could be a little bit over the top. I can't have him at the price. Aloft, look, they said he got the tongue over the bit last start, which explained his 35 length second last. He was tailed off. He was horrible. Too bad to be true, and obviously that the reason they gave makes sense. I'm just not in the business of backing a $5 horse that was 35 lengths away last start, so I can't back him. The Venga Mask was the Geelong Cup winner, so he has obvious claims. He's been in the mix around some of these races, these kind of races for a while, but he's very inconsistent. He finds it hard to put two together. So you know, 750. I wouldn't talk you out of backing him, but hard to be enthused. Sismontane, I'm going to be against as well. As I said, he's a good example of a Moonee Valley horse that was well suited by the short straight. You know, being an on-pace runner, gets the Flemington here, and he's got a long way to hold on for here if he leads. So I'm going to oppose him, especially at $6. I felt it was way too short. Allwood, I am interested, but once again, he comes down from these Sydney races, racing against horses like Up and Rolling, Destiny's Kiss. I'm not sure how that ties in, you know, especially with a horse like Harlem, who's got Emily Starr, Mandan form, Caulfield Cup form. You know, $7, once again, I didn't think it was very generous. Gets the lightweight, McAvoy, I think he maps beautifully. But once again, I just got a question mark on how strong his form is. So, you know, that's a hard race. This is a hard day, so I'm just sort of going through my thoughts. Curlstorm, you know, I felt all in. He's the only play I've made in the race. I might not even make another one. And I'm very happy with my play in the race. I got him at $18, so I think that was the wrong price all in. Why? Because two starts ago he ran this track and distance 2,500 metre Flemington, and he beat Armand, the Cup favourite, home, and he beat Harlem home, who is 460 here. So that, you got to pay attention to that. And I thought he was okay in the Geelong Cup. You know, he was only 1.5 lengths away. He sort of got cluttered up between horses. Flemington's a longer straight, and you know, I have to just sort of reference that run 2 runs ago. I didn't think he was that bad last start, so I'm sort of like, okay, he was okay last start. The start before, why is he $18? So he's in, and I pulled the right rein there because he's in the 750. So look, he's no moral. He'll get back in the field, but I think Darren Weir can, you know, once again, like I said, get a horse to peak. He's in the right hands, and I think he's an each way pop. So sort of the way I look at the race, I think sort of 4 hopes I'm looking at. I'm happy to go against Lofts, Sismontane I'm against, Ecuador I'm against. I think Harlem's in the mix, but unders. You know, Allwood, Curlstorm, probably my 2 selections at the moment, and I think Venga Mask as well, coming off that Geelong Cup win. They're sort of ones I wouldn't talk you out of backing, but I don't think there's a big edge with the current market. So my advice there for you guys is either you can sit out. I can't really find much of an edge. You can wait and see how the track's playing. Obviously, if they're swooping, your horses like Allwood and Curlstorm are coming into it. If it's on pace, you might reconsider Sismontane or even Venga Mask, who might go forward. You know, or if they drift out to, you know, those runners I mentioned, if, you know, Allwood gets to $9, $10 or a Curlstorm gets to that odds, you might have a each way play that, you know, with one of them when you're getting $3 a place. So we'll go to race 5, and this is, I will declare it the hardest race I've ever tried to analyse. The Coolmore Stud Stakes. It's a hot race. There's no standout, and it's, I mean, I could you know, go through, tell you 10 runners that can win, and I'll probably still miss the winner. It's that kind of race. There's multiple angles to take. They've all got knocks. I think Trapeze Artist is a chance. You got to take him on trust. His best run is his Golden Rose win, and that's, you know, when you look at that run alone, you think, why the hell isn't this thing $2.50 or $3? But before that, his form was poor. He's freshened up. I think he had an issue. He got scratched from a race in Sydney. He's probably overs, you know, when I'm vocalising it now. Just off that Golden Rose run, he's got the blinkers on again, which was the trick with him. And having a strong 1400 metre horse is pretty good is pretty handy for a 1200 metre straight race, because, like I said, the pressure goes on a long way out, and all of these speedy horses can be sitting shots that last 100. And, you know, Trapeze Artist, he's in the mix. Kementari, good enough. I just have to oppose him 1600 back to 1200, and Catchy's a long way down the numbers here, but same thing with Catchy. I think Catchy's ticks more boxes than Kementari because she's proven up the Flemington straight, and she's got that wide gate. Kementari's got a good gate too. I think they've got drawn to swoop. They're in the right spot to do that. But once again, Catchy, 1600 metres 3 weeks ago, back to 1200. The Hayes and Dabney Yard are flying. They've got, you know, a lot of good runners. They're good trainers, but I just feel sometimes they have a habit of overcooking their horses. They can run them one run too many. Not sure if that happened with Vega Magic last week, but I feel like they don't spell their horse before it trains off. I feel like they have that run where it trains off and then they spell, and that could be Catchy here. She's been up for a while and back 16 to 1200. Viridine, look, I was interested, but I've had a look through this race again and how open it is, and at 750 I've got to oppose. Barrier 1's potentially a question mark. Traditionally you probably want to be drawn wider. We don't know that yet though, I'm just suspecting. And I've got to ask a question, is Single Bullet form good enough to be favoured in this race? That's a fair question. At 750, Single Bullet just got beat by Optimum last week by 3 lengths, and we'll get to Optimum soon. This is his acid test. He's a talented colt. I think he's unders because I think he's got a lot to prove. Jukebox, ticks boxes, he'll run well. He's never finished worse than second. He's run well up the Flemington Straight behind Catchy this prep. I think he's in the mix. I think he's in the mix, but you got to look at Catchy beating this prep and Formality beating this prep, and those runners are $13 and $8 respectively. I think he'll run honestly, but I think he's the type of horse where I think we've seen what he's got this preparation, and I think he's likely to find a couple better. So I think to run top 4 or 5, I think he's a reasonable bet. To win, I'm preferring others. I'm penning Goodfella because I think his best form's on a wet track. I think he's probably better at 1400. I think he got the job done last start at 1200 because I felt a few of them had chinks at 1200 and a few of them had wet track chinks, and I think that wet track brought him into it. Going to oppose him first time up the straight as well. So I'm sort of penning Goodfella. Merchant Navy is, once again, you look at his first up run, he swooped past Booker, who has beaten Catchy this prep, so you can tie that into Catchy being a $7.50 chance. He's been freshened, gets that wider gate as well to swoop. Like, I can see him storming into a finish, but once again, it's hard. His Golden Rose run was poor, but Formality was poor in the Golden Rose, has come out and won since. And there was another horse, Paras was poor in the Golden Rose, and has come out and won since. So that probably bodes well for Merchant Navy for forgiving him. So I think he's been back. He opened $21, which was overs, and he's come into about 15. So it's hard for me to price him though. Like, all these runners are around, deserve to be that $10 to $15 mark. It's just which one do you back? It's really a lottery here. Draco is on penning. I just think he's probably a tier below some of these. Optimum, I'm against the price as well. I just think once again he's a Moonee Valley example. He got the rails run, kicked on the rail, and was probably flattered by the track. Beat home single bullet. I think $9 here. I think this is once again another acid test like Viridine. He's on the 1 week backup. First time at the Flemington Straight. He's versing some horses, proven Group 1 horses here. Lone Eagle, I think is a bit of a blowout, $51. I haven't got any money on him, but he finished not far behind Formality and Jukebox last start, and I think that barrier 11, I have a vision of the race, and I potentially can see him sort of cutting through the middle, and he'll be strong at the end of the race. I think he's overs, but I'm probably saying that about a lot of the runners here. So the Lone Eagle isn't hopeless. Andaz, same thing. The thing with the Andaz, though, he's proven Flemington Straight, albeit in a weaker race. So I've actually had a little bit of a bet on Andaz at $61. I think proven at the Flemington Straight, strong at the end of 1200, and the fact that Waller's got a very good record in this race. He's trained Jeff Ponnersmay and Brazen Bow in recent years to win in this race. I think it's in with a shot. I think it's lightly raced, and it's sort of one of the fresher horses on the scene. And I think I can be confident in saying it's going to improve from last start, where I think a lot of these might potentially be training off. But it has that class query. But at $61, you don't have to have much on. Lassegeist, look, I think it's probably outclassed here. If you followed my tips last week, I did back him each way. But this is much harder up the straight here, and he's coming from Sandown and a much weaker race last start up to this. Hootson, speedy filly, and you have to think the Everest form is pretty good for this. Only beaten 3.2 lengths by Redzel, but I think the straight, she's on tired legs at the end of 1200, and I think there's a few of these up the straight when they're all spread across the track. There's horses like even Kementari, Merchant Navy, who are going to be powering through the line. They're going to be close enough to Hootson in the run that when she gets a bit tired, you think there's going to have to be a few that go past her. Tulip, out of the Everest runners, Tulip beat Hoots at home, but is a longer price here, so I think Tulip's overs. I'm on at $18 all in. She's 13 now. I still think is a reasonable each way bet. She's just in the thick of things with these, the catchies and the jukeboxes and that kind of form. 2.6 lengths behind Redzel reads well. I thought McAvoy, I heard news that McAvoy did choose Tulip over Formality, and I did publish that on my page, so I apologise that I got that wrong, but that was what I was told from a news source. McAvoy has chosen Formality, but it makes sense because he's sticking with her after her last start win. So they're both in the mix, Tulip and Formality. I think in Formality's favour, she's tough, she's on pace, and she's been winning races. Tulip hasn't won for a while, but I certainly prefer a horse that might be cuddled up down that outside part of the track. I have just a sort of a vision that's where the area where they're going to come from, because there's a few like similar horses coming down that same part of the track. Invincible Star, proven up the Flemington Straight, last start winner, but I think a strong 1200 potentially can test her, and I think she's rising in grade. She beat I think it was Split Lip, Counterplay, Jordan last start. I don't think that form's measured up, and I think she's unders at about the $8 mark. Well, then Limestone's not hopeless as well. She's the last one in the race. I think she's proven up the Flemington Straight, and I think, you know, she failed at 1400 last start, but I think she's probably an out-and-out sprinter. And the start before, when Damien Lane fell off, she was looming into the race, and she probably would have finished within a length of Jukebox and Catchy, who are, you know, 1/4 of her price here. So you can't back them all. So there's a few I'm against, guys. So maybe have a rewatch, write down the ones I'm against at the price, and write down the ones I mentioned that are overs. And then obviously maybe look through yourself and sort of, if there's been one you followed, you might want to stick with. So that is a super tough race. My recommendation is probably don't get too many chips involved, and good luck. So we'll go to the mire. So race 6 for the mares. Once again, another open affair here. I'll go through the runners of interest. Global Glamour, deserved favourite, coming off her 1400 metre win last start. Different kettle of fish here though, leading at 1600 at Flemington. In her favour, she's got added fitness, she's tough, she seems to kick and hold on. Draws a good gate. Once again, in these open races, I'm looking outside of these $5 favourites. So I'm away from Global Glamour, but deserves to be favourite. I'm slightly against Fox Play. I think she's classy, she's a Queen of the Turf winner, but I think she was pretty poor last start. She was beaten home by 6 other runners, and she's sort of priced on her potential and her form up in Sydney around horses like Winks and Happy Clapper. Barrier 12, she'll get back. I'm preferring others. I Am a Star was last year's winner. I think she was poor last start, coming last in the 2-rack. She's never been one of mine, and she's done me a couple of times, but I think she's outclassed by a few here. I think Solid Sedition can be the improver. So her form looks a little bit disappointing if you look at it at face value, first and second up this prep. But she now gets in 3rd up, so she's been set for this race, and she finally gets a soft draw. So I think she'll get that nice suck run, 1 out, 1 back even, or, you know, a couple of pairs back, and she's good enough. She's very classy. Let's not forget she's SP'd favourite in the Queen of the Turf that Fox Play won. So you can, if you look, that was only 6 months ago, and if you look at the price turnarounds, you know, between some of those horses in that race, I think she has claims here, but I have missed the price. She opened 12s, I missed it, and she's been crunched in at 850. So the punter's probably thinking pretty similar to me there. Heavens Above, inconsistent, can't catch. She could potentially win on her best, but can't back her. Daniel's Twist, I opposed her last time and I'll oppose her again. Barrier 16, I think she's got none from there. Dixie Blossoms and Daisy Doom, I'll go through them together. They're both honest, consistent mares. Don't like their preparations though. So they were 1600 metres, they went back to 1200 because Ronnie Quinton wanted to give them a run. Now they're back up to 1600. I just don't think it suits. I think in a race of even mares, I'm looking for chinks in these runners, and their preparation's the chink for me. I prefer Dixie over Daisy. I think Daisy can be a bit of a shitting shot the last 100 of a 1600 metre race. Dixie had her beat at 1600 last time they met, but I'm preferring others as well. Prompt Response, same thing as Daisy Doom. I think potentially the last 100 metres she might be a bit suspect. French Emotion, sort of light, not hopeless, but I think they will find a couple too good. Eckstein, same thing, might find a couple too good, has a class query and also a 1600 metre query. I think Now or Later's in the mix. She was a bit disappointing last start, but she might be looking for 1600. Her 1600 metre record's good. Start before, she beat a lot of, you know, similar mares to this. In the mix, Cool Passion seems to go around these long odds, Forgotten Horse, but the negatives this time are the wide gate and 1600 metres potentially. So not one of mine, and I'm not going to jump on after the 2 wins. Or the first and the second. I think maybe I've missed my chance to collect on her. Shoals is a big hope here, and I'm on at $11, so I'm really happy with that play all in. I think punters can see that she only got beaten by Aloysia last start, and we saw, I've heard ratings gurus say that Aloysia is potentially a once-in-a-decade filly, which is a massive claim. That's, you know, that's talking superstar, you know, Winks level, that kind of, not quite Winks level yet, because Winks is potentially better than once-a-decade top kind of horse, but very freakish horse Aloysia, and the fact that Shoals only found her a length better bodes well here, and she drops down to 50 kilos as the lone 3-year-old in the race. So that's my play in the race so far is Shoals. If you're not on Shoals yet, I'll probably wait. I don't think she'll get much shorter than $5, and if she stays at $5, I think you can potentially look at a few others at value in the race. Shillelagh's one with the hope, but she's fourth emergency, and I think she'll run in the Kennedy Mile. So once again, tough mares race. I'm with Shoals at the moment. I was keen to back Silent Sedition. I might if she gets back out to double figures, but I think 850 is probably no longer over, so I'm happy to just let Shoals go around at the moment. We'll go to the Derby, main race for the day. So I'm with Ace High. I'm on at $10. I backed him halfway down the straight in the Spring Champion that he won, and I backed Main Stage as well at $7 when he won over 1800, but he was disappointing last start. So I'll go through Ace High. The query for him is 4 weeks off. Like a lot of these runners, the trip's going to be the question mark. He's a 2,500 metre. It's a brutal derby for these 3-year-olds, and a lot of them haven't been tested at this distance. Breeding says that it shouldn't be much of a problem. He's had a High Chaparral and a Rudette's Choice mare. But the way he was on wobbly legs at the end of 2000 last start makes you wonder. But in his defence, he sort of hit the front a long way out, and he was there to be run down by something coming out of the pack. So I think he gets a different run this time. He might even sit behind the lead, and you know he's a live hope. Tangled is just behind Ace High, has since run second to Cliff's Edge, beating home Main Stage. $7 seems about the right price, as a lot of these are pretty evenly priced, and I think deservedly so. He has a question mark on the trip too for me, because he's out of Schnitzel. Even though he's out of an Oaks mare, Schnitzel, being out of Schnitzel has to be some type of query. Wallace said the same thing. I have a question mark on the trip of Astoria. Loom to win the Geelong Cup last start, which itself is a second tier race, and sort of I think gave out condition, not really bred to get the Derby distance. Main Stage is an interesting one because I love his 800 metre on the start before when beating Cliff's Edge, but he was flat last start. You know, Aberronally beat him home. I don't think that bodes well here. In his favour, being out a reliable man, I think he'll be suited up to 2,500 metres, and I believe out of the yard he had more improvement to come. So there are a couple of ticks in his favour. Barrier 14, bit of an issue, he might have to go back. I've got my ticket on him. I'm not chucking him in the bin, but I'm not that keen on him. I'm trying to rationalise my ticket, and I'm still slightly leaning against him. So I think if I didn't have a ticket, I'd be against him. I just think there's a few factors, and I think mainly the main thing was he was disappointing last start, when you want to see him improving and getting closer to a peak for the Derby. I think Sully should enjoy 2,500 metres on breeding as well. He'll get back from barrier 15-2, I'm quite pretty sure he will. I'd slightly prefer him over Main Stage, to be honest. But once again, hard to line these form ones up. 850, couldn't talk you out of an each way bet, but I mean, what separates him? I don't know if there's any other more upside in him than any other of the other runners. Weather With You, I don't mind. I potentially can save on Weather With You, because barrier 2, he's an on-pace runner, and he was a bit disappointing before last start, but his best run this prep has been at 2,200. So that's further than a lot of his contenders have run here, and the fact that his best run this prep has been over its furthest distance this prep bodes well that 2,500 will actually suit, and breeding suggests 2,500 will be good. So I think he's a live hope. If I think he's a live hope, I've got to have Oceans 14 as a live hope. He's only had 3 career starts, and last start he was 16 up to 2,200 and only just beaten by Weather With You. So, you know, 4th up here, smaller step up in distance. I think he has to be in the mix, and at $13 is not a bad play either. And I think Greycliff has a lot of upside. So out of Tabby stock, he's bred to get over the ground. 2,200 metre winner. He did the same thing as Oceans 14, 16 up to 2,200. So I think he'll improve off the run, but he's making a massive leap in grade. He's coming from a benchmark 64. So that's the way I'm playing the Derby. So I've got my main stage and Ace High bets. If I had to pick again now, I'd pick either Weather With You each way, and I don't mind Oceans 14 or Greycliff. I just think Tangled and Sully are pretty well exposed at this level now. I think they're not hopeless, but I think these other runners have the potential to win the race with a bit of improvement. Well, we're going to race 8 Kennedy Mile, and there are a few cats in this, a few munchers. We'll go through the munchers. So you've got Tom Melbourne, you've got Dibiani, Ome Sword, and So Saban. So, and the sick thing is, I've backed 2 of them. So I don't know what you want to do with me as somebody giving you advice. But these, in their defence, these runners have ability. Okay. So Toasted Stardom can win, winner of the 2 rack. Top weight, yes. probably he's worse off at the weight, than he was in the Toorak. But I think he covered ground there, and I think if he reproduces that again or improves, they will find it super hard to beat him. He's a top class horse. He's very well credentialed. My queries with him is A, the weight, and B, the consistency. He's struggled to string consistent runs together in Australia. Same as Lucky Hustler. Last weekend in the Crystal Mile, he was immense. That form is definitely good enough to win this race. Him and Tosin would fight it out on their best form. My query is, before that, his form read quite poorly. Can you trust him? Can you trust him on the week back up to perform up to what he did last week? Other query is, he got a hot tempo last week at Moonee Valley. This race looks very devoid of a designated leader, so he might not get that this race. So, both the top is a good chances, but they concede weight, and there's a few good lightweight chances here, probably at longer odds that a little bit more keener on. McQuarrie's not hopeless, but he hasn't won in a long time, and I have to prefer others. I have to think, once again, he's been running in these kind of handicap miles for a while. Runs okay, holds his head high, but I have to prefer others. Tom Melbourne, he's super well weighted based off his credentials. His second to Happy Clapper in the Epsom was very good. He's a cat. He continues to run second. He hasn't won for a long time. I mean, he's probably a good play, potentially a good place bet. Good one to include in your first fours and exotics. Hard to have him as a straight out win bet, but look, I think on paper his form reads, okay, this horse can win this race, but it's Tom Melbourne. That's the problem. Alright, we'll go to Egg Tart. So I thought she was a bit disappointing in the Toorak handicap. She was okay first up. She's third up now, and she did have a gap between her first and second up runs because of the eye infection. So if you're happy to forgive that, she can improve with 3 weeks off into this race here. And she's won at Flemington before. Draws a mid-gate with McAvoy on lightweight. She ticks a few boxes. I'm just questioning how well she's going and how well her dominant 3-year-old stuff ties in with these older horses. I think at 650, I think there's better plays in the race. Dibiani can place. Absolute cat, hasn't won for probably even nearly 4 years now, I reckon, I'm not sure. But he's well weighted, and on his day, I think he's ran wings to a length before being ridden up on pace. So he might even lead this race or be right up on pace because there's no real designated leader. And he can kick. I can't back him to win, but I think he's a definite place chance. So Ome Sword has the class. I still remember her flashing second to a Stern in the Golden Rose when she was 3. This preparation, she's frustrating. She probably hasn't been at her best. I keep sticking up for her, making excuses for her, but listen to Chris Waller today, and he said she does need to pull her finger out, and I'll have to agree with that. I'm going to say Flemington should suit, and maybe I'm just desperate to get my money back, but she has ability, can't deny her ability on her day, and she's got a big race in her, and I'm going to feel sick if I don't back her and she just comes out and she wins this race. And I think at $24, I think, I don't need to have a lot on it. I think I'm getting a price where I can suspect and I can forgive and I can, have a bet on a very talented horse on her day. Shillelagh's in the mix. I think, she's half the price of an Ome Sword and even So Sibon, and I think they're just as good a chances. I think on talent-wise, So Sibon and Ome Sword are better horses than Shillelagh, but Shillelagh's got the last start, good run behind her. So she's in the mix. I just prefer a few others at the price. Sovereign Nation's been flashing home in the 2 handicap races. I think the Sir Rupert Clark and the Toorak. Stays down in the weights here. Draws softer. I don't know if that's a positive. It's probably neutral because I don't think if he draws wide it's a negative because he's going to get back anyway. But I think he's well found enough at 850. I think he'll run a good race, but whether or not he's going to win or he's going to steam home into a 3rd or 4th again, I'm not too sure. And So Sibon is another one who's munched my money away. So he and Ome Sword I've been on pretty bad and some punting experiences with. But I think his last start 3rd in the Rupert Clark was strong. The mile suits now, big Flemington track. I think he's in good shape to run well here. Problem is, he could be cooked. He's been up a while. He's had 4 weeks between runs. Robbie Lang has poorly placed him. But I think this is the right race, and I think coming off a trial win, that might hopefully get him to hit the line and stick his neck out because he's only won the one race. So you know, he'll get back and run on. So out of the race, I'm with Sosebon and Ome Sword. You know, I'm happy for you guys to have a laugh at it because they're obviously munchers, but both supremely talented horses and both longish odds in these open kind of races. And if one of them runs a place, I end up in the green for the race. So that's the way I'm looking at it. A few other chances in the race. I think the bottom three are outclassed. Where are we? And I think McQuarrie and Sensification, I can't back either of them as well. So go to the last race, okay? So last race, another tough open race, up the straight, 1200 metres. So you've got Illustrious Lad, good first up behind Super Cash, proving up the Flemington straight. $6 I think is unders in an open race. That's just it. I've got no knock on the horse. I just don't think he's any better than some of these runners. I think $6 is slightly unders. Keener Ray's double the price, and I think Keener Ray's just as good a chance. He's proven up the Flemington straight, winning up the straight 2 starts ago in the Gill Guy. Last start carried 60 kilos, only beaten by Rich Charm, who I think had 6 kilos less. I think he's a great $12 chance. He's drawn out wide, he gives his all, and I think he's the type of horse when he's out of form, he stays out of form for a couple of runs, and when he's in form he can reproduce. So I'm happy to roll with him at $12 each way, and I've already had a bet. I think Darren needs it wet, the Monster, not good enough. Miss Rock has had a very funny preparation. It's Robbie Lang again, same trainer as Sosa Bond. Look, I don't want to criticise Robbie, but if you have a look at it, she's gone 1,000, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 metres, which she didn't handle. Back to 1,000, now back up to 1,200. It's just all over the cook shop with no specified target race. But in her favour, I think this is the right kind of race for her. She's proven up the Flemington straight, she's run well. 1,200 is probably her best trip. Barrier 15, drawn to, you know, sort of get the run I was talking about in the Coolmore, that Merchant Navy and those kind of runners will just sort of hopefully be on the bridle, present, and they've got a nice strong finish. $15, she's good enough to be in the finish here. Preparation's the query, but I haven't backed her yet. If I'm going to back another runner, she's my next preference behind Keener Ray, who I've already backed. Bonds Away is in the mix, no knock. I'm against Ravi. Not that she can't win, same as Illustrious Lad. They can both win, but I think both at $6 in an open race. My knock with Ravi is Barrier 1, and she's had one run up the Flemington straight in Cup. I think it was Cup Day last year, and she was a bit disappointing. She didn't run up to her lead-in run. So Flemington straight's a query, Barrier 1's a query, and she's sort of runs in mare grade normally, and she's taking on sort of these males here. So I don't know why she's $6. I think she deserves to be around that $12, $13 mark, you know, something similar to Miss Rock. Rich Charm ticks a lot of boxes. The good thing in his favour is he loves track and distance. He's proven up the Flemington straight, and he beat Keener Ray last start. So Keener Ray meets him 2 kilos better off at the weights. So if you look at the prices, once again, I think Keener Ray's overs because Rich Charm's about $7. But, you know, I don't mind Rich Charm here. That's a winning chance. Man from Uncle's a query runner, so he's been off the scene for a while. He won first up last preparation at 1,200 in Sydney, beat home horses like Coming Through, who have been Group 1 competitive. Hard for me to back him at $8, so he's come up $8 here. First time Flemington straight, he's run well at Flemington before though. You know, he's coming off a long break, we don't know how his 3-year-old form's going to measure up in open class here. Is he a sprinter? I still don't know. I think he was on the Randwick Guineas preparation in the autumn. Didn't get there, so I don't know whether he's a miler, whether he's a sprinter. We don't know what he is. I think for the queries involved, I thought $8 was a little bit too skinny. But look, he's a blowout. I wouldn't be surprised if he won because the horse has some type of ability, and you know, horses like him have the potential to come out and be better 4-year-olds than they were at 3 years old. So tough race again. So that's it, guys. That's the 9 races. Enjoy the day. I think a big thing to be aware of is, once again, I've got no idea how the track's going to play. Normally back markers can get into these races at Flemington. Wide barriers, especially for get back horses, is no issue. Wait and see how the track plays and adjust as it goes. So don't just lock in. If you've locked in early because you think something's overs, it's fine. Like I think Slitzerpeg at 10 was overs. I'm not sure whether you'd back in now because Chaonic's coming out. I felt like Kelstorm All In at $18 was overs. I felt Keener Ray at $12 was overs. I felt like you know, why is he starting that price? He should be $7-8. So I've backed horses I think are overs and going to firm. Otherwise, you can adjust on the go. You want to have the ability to adjust according to track pattern, okay, on the day. But enjoy the day's racing. It'll be a spectacular day. These fields are massive, a lot of good horses. It's a tough day. Hopefully I can find at least 1 or 2 winners. The good thing with the day is if you find a winner, a lot of the time they're going to pay a decent amount because of we don't have a lot of short price favourites. So looking forward to a great Cup week. This is the start of it, and once again with the Rosehill races, I'll post up some written tips and horses that I'm backing, and I'll do the same for Flemington as well. So enjoy the Derby day, and I'll speak to you all for a preview of the Melbourne Cup day. Cheers guys.